the original topic na yeah de Emma me no. It was me who you know. Na about Madrid ne business model ne ɛba ne coaching philosophy. And I mean who topic na I'm say Madrid on that ni coaching philosophy sir. It's actually a business model, not business model, not translated to what we see on the park. Yeah, I mean, so okay, and I may modernize it, I may modify we in kakra the topic no, and then the topic na no, which is Real Madrid Football Club in operation, a model of business organization for called Asante Kotoko. Now, no, Obi Bebusa say, Adena, Madrid, I didn't compare Asante Kotoko, they ask a quina were too much. Adena Anya Alibi and answer Horoya, and as even Anya Samate simple, because these clubs, no, they are the Ghana clubs, Nibimpo, Samates. Maybe I'll be waiting. Like I say, it looks like it's being run better than Kotoko currently. So yeah, and I'm say okay, yes, the gap may be huge. Well, yes, say I confirm Madrid, no, but Obia or follow football, world football, and yeah, omo any TV so keke, and now omo kase me Madrid ni me Barcelona ni no. There is a whole lot of academics that go behind what we see on the field. Until I just decided, so okay, look, you bet me you Madrid, no. Now, yeah, they are linking what maybe I bit mama ya be connected to Kotoko because since 1990 there has actually been a major transformation in the world of football, which actually started in about and I'm saying Ghana and a lot of people actually name their course through English football, but say what follow English football kakra over who said 1992 almost started the current Premier League English clubs would redefine their league until they also got to a point who say baby our football they needed a bit of reformation until there is actually a book near or see how the English clubs reinvented football. Okay, a bit trail the steps that the clubs actually took. Ọmụ hụ sɛ baabi a football ɛkɔ na sɛ ɔmo yɛ ɔmo biribi afoforɔ because na ɛduru baabi a na there was a crisis in football in terms of generation and growth of income. Where we drew baby a clubs no realize say who generating income just from the traditional football business, which traditional football business meant match day tickets. And I think broadcast rights air basel because previously no the previous years no if you go back 70s 80s how you're watching football no na ebi ni hosa. So a lot of the traditional way of doing football no, was mostly match day tickets. People will come no matter tickets, no matter. And Ansana broadcast rights no but before no the broadcast rights no the especially in the England no BBC actually thought say yeah the club's favor to carry their football until now I be to say the who no Ghana is here. Kopim clubs not who say okay we cannot continue this way. And that was the crisis led by football when they came to realize that the traditional way of running football and as funding football through match day tickets is no longer any future. So football clubs had to transform into modern sports and media companies into football as we know it now. Ebe say running any company. So in the 90s, Ubehu said Manchester United became a pioneer in commercially exploiting its brand to raise money. Yeah, you're connecting here to Madrid, Neymar Madrid, say though the English clubs, predominantly Manchester United, no, and another pioneer in exploiting this new way of trying to raise money, no, to run their club, no. Madrid would become the reference point for other clubs, especially when in 2001, 2002, FIFA SRA affirming Madrid as the best club, like the best football club of the 20th century, which previously, no, na sa international statistics, we na almost Kotoko, the African club of the century, already no Madrid that recognition. So FIFA, Eddie way back home. Any changes be a happen here from 2000s coming, made Madrid the reference point, and Madrid is still the reference point when it comes to football. Practically almost every club in the world tries to imitate you, and we are not only talking about performance on the pitch, but as I move on, what I mean by how Madrid became the reference point for other clubs, and other clubs means Kotoko. So as I go on, me connect it where Madrid and Kotoko have some similarities. And if by ending the whole thing, maybe say who say whether Kotoko will future and I say only future. So the Madrid becoming a reference point also had to do with the leadership of Florentino Perez, whose leadership would transform Madrid in the 2000s, um, to make Madrid the way I in Madrid said the city and Perez aim was to implement new marketing strategy. The marketing strategy was to make sure say obe strengthen the value of the Madrid football brand. So Madrid operates on what we call the revenue. Hello, hello, Botiminka.
Nick, we can hear you very well.
Okay, good. Madrid operates on a business model. It's all about raising revenue, and that model, no, who implemented by in a way, what they did was okay. Traditional football clubs, it was say a better modern sports and media company, and the whole idea of Madrid is that we have to raise money. We have to have a certain ceiling on income. So they better a bit more running the football club the way they actually want it. So Madrid, when it comes to Madrid, it's all about making money, not necessarily to make profit, because in Spain, football clubs are not actually supposed to be profit making, but you actually have to raise enough money in order to run your club. And that idea of football becoming a business model, all about raising money, that idea came from the US. The whole of US sports entertainment, yeah, it had actually been developed in a way says so wow who follow US sports kakra. Obetumanga say okay, you the Enfa football crown to look at their whole NBA. The American sports system, no, it's mostly about entertainment, but it's also about raising millions of money. So you create the atmosphere, and who say the English football clubs once again in 1992 when the big clubs in Asia, yes, they needed to redefine their football clubs. They all actually look up to US. In all the stadiums in the UK, they redesigned the stadiums in a way, say, having some form of entertainment value. Importing ideas from US. So Madrid name model, no, which then Omofabia free US is okay. How do we raise money? How do we make money? That is the whole idea about Madrid. So Madrid is all about making money and making money in a way, say, Ube utilize um, every decision making at the club, no, ebe take it's all about money, 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 money. So in order to do this, no, Madrid became so successful, which I will get into the management model no we use here, no, to the point say almost strategy in the market innovations now we use has not only caught the eyes of other teams, but companies and schools of business management. Nina them Madrid model, how they are able to do everything so well, raise the money they need, and also be able to market their club in a way say to say like any brand, any product on the market. This is what Madrid is all about. So the Madrid model operates on creating multiple revenue streams, and that is they only do this by asking these questions: How do we make money? because they say Madrid claims, and it is actually a fact. Madrid is how do we make money? Because the idea is without money, they cannot stay successful. So they need to make money. Now, before I ever going a bit deeper, and winning by the end, we connected this to Kotoko. Now, what is actually going on? Who said the foundations of Madrid, once again asking the question, say why Madrid? Is the gap not so huge? Is the gap not so wide? And then I use some team will be a bank Kotoko. You'd realize the transformation of Madrid is all about human resources. And the when the human resources, the decision goes into player, the outcome, mostly it doesn't take and take even decades for them to actually mostly abros were 5 6 years. Who said there's actually um an outcome based on the decisions they actually took. So now we are talking about Madrid because I think we don't really need to go really deep into Madrid, who Madrid is, and I said why not Madrid, but let's a bit of Madrid, a bit of history of Madrid. Now you're connecting it to Kotoko. Now Madrid, as we know it, a bit of history, who owns it. Now the club was officially founded in 1902 and it was then called Madrid FC. Mobile, no mobile ball, no various parks, various venues. No man shed that new mobile biasa. So the term Madrid obviously is from the city Madrid, and Real is actually a Spanish word which means royal. And so and only everything they have connected the royal Asante Kotoko indirectly, everything the connection be abe shell. So the royal aspect, was given to the club by the king at that time. The Spanish was a monarch, so the king Afonso the 13th, and granted Omu the right to use the royal crown in 1920. But Madrid was not the only club. Said the will be say because obviously, and no, me person may deviate from my topic. So usually, yes, it's known that Madrid had always been the club of the establishment. But in terms of granting Madrid the permission to use the royal crown and even to be called the royal club no, which is Real no. They were not the only team. In the more I follow the um, Spanish La Liga, who said there are also other teams that are more used to the term Real. So even in the case of Real Sociedad, they were even granted that privilege already 8 years before Madrid was granted that privilege. So Real Sociedad was granted the permission to use the royal name in 1912. Now, there were these 1920s now till 1941. There were a lot of things that go on in Spain that would actually affect Madrid and football at large. So, beginning there, you had the coup of 1923, the coup man, on your friend Miguel. Then they abolished the monarch, which like or taking over, but he allowed Afonso to stay as a king for a while. Then the Second Republic of Spain was actually created in 1931 till 1939. But that one, no crowd, there were a whole lot of issues. You had a civil war in 1936 to 1939. And during the time of the Civil War, Nayem Bobo and Sana, later at the end of the Civil War, Francisco Franco, who then actually took over, became the military ruler who'd actually rule till 1975. So within this period, no, especially between 1991, 1931 and 1941, Madrid was not allowed to use the royal badge and also referred to themselves as Real Madrid. So they had to just revert to their old name, which was Madrid FC, because the my friend is saying the end of the monarch, they didn't the new leaders didn't want any connection to anything that had anything to do with to do with the monarch. So Madrid was no longer called Real Madrid, it was just Madrid FC. And wow, name the history of Kumasi Asante Kotoko Kakra, which I will touch on Kakra. These same years, 1935, Levan said 1920s to 1935, and then later, no, Obehu said Kumasi, the town Kumasi was going through similar things. And that was the same time now you take Kumasi Asante Kotoko. But Obehu said, those turbulent years now, I bet transforming Madrid, no, those turbulent years, I see what Kumasi would actually create the birth of Asante Kotoko. But unfortunately, the two clubs, would take a different path. But I will get member and also later. So who owns Madrid? Madrid, India. Yes, the club is just owned by the club members. I from the socios. The socio in Spanish, you can only loosely translate it as partner in the eyes of a partner. They actually own the club and they operate the club. They've always operated the club through its history. So unlike the English clubs now you get corporations and individuals taking over. No, that is not the case when it comes to Madrid. It's just these club members and are owning the club. They actually, the socios, they hold the voting rights. So they elect their president and board of directors. President serve a term of 4 years, and there is no limit. 4 years, be able to about now win near. So usually, apart from uh, the socios ne nyinaa ɛto aba no, they also choose a 2000 General Assembly a wɔn na approve budget, loans, and holding the president accountable. So that is how Madrid actually operates. So it's just a certain um, number of people now only the club. The socios near different from omo from Hala Madristas for now. Omo no yeah the fan you can be a fan member. That one idea you can be in any part of the world and become a fan member by going to the club's website, applying and joining to become but that doesn't make you a socio. To become a socio, no, it's practically almost impossible because, like they say, you are actually born a socio. To become a socio, which is a club member, no, and as a club owning member, you actually have to be a Spanish citizen. You have to be related to a socio, since only children and grandchildren of socios in it may apply. You can only join if someone gives up their sport, which actually never happens. And as when more sports are created, membership isn't transferable. Doing to me, in fact, or membership, no, will be for. Socios to join, if you are eligible, you pay 150 euros a year. And currently, there are about 90,000 of them. And like I said, they are different from the card bearing funds. Now, the waiting list to join the socio can actually take forever. Currently, there's an estimated 50,000 who are actually on the waiting list. Some of them have actually been on the waiting list for over 20 years. Now, being a socio, of course, apart from being a member, a member of the club, no, it also comes with certain incentives. So when it comes to away tickets, they are actually sold to the socios. And when it comes to home games, the socios actually buy their ticket before they open up to the general public. Now, so the socios actually choose who their president is. Now, every year, every fourth year, president is elected. The president is responsible for the club's business decisions, both on and off the pitch. So, who connecting it to what is actually happening in Kotokwa? Obi who say, okay, as a in that case, we are actually worried apart because Kotoko model is different, but a Honomeba Hall later, just touching on Madrid, anyhow, actually they operate their club and why their club has become so successful. But actually, I hope I'm so may also
Yeah.
okay, right. So now the socios, yes, they choose a president every 4 years, and the requirement, to become a president, 2012, almost 18 kakra, the requirement because they wanted to limit the number of candidates. So to be eligible to become an asset to even apply to become a president, you have to be a member of a socio for at least 20 years, and you must have enough money to be able to obtain a bank guarantee worth at least 15% of the club's budget. Now, the club's budget, no, ensure that they don't really have a budget. There is always a spending limit, which is actually designed by the Spanish FA. So they would actually uh, they have a table, and each club no based on financial performance, any car day, any your the day-to-day running of your club, wages near you know, they would then design your spending limit. So currently, way Madrid spending limit is $727 million in comparison, because Ode Barcelona be compare Barcelona limit now is only $200 million. Until now, we who say Madrid, Barcelona for would always say Niska, Niska, Omuniska, Omuniska. But it only happened Madrid, the ano, with the arrival of Perez in 2000, and in Niema or to that is how Madrid has actually become what it is now. Now, in terms of Uber president, obviously, Omoya campaign. So the campaign, or Obiabeka and a year done in any so, but I know what they actually want to do. So, in the case of Perez promising in 2000 when he wanted to become the president, he then promised the Figo Beba from Barcelona, which at that time sounded like almost an impossible feat. So the Nebeba. Partly that was why they voted for him, but you may get into deeper, we will see that he offered more than so the Figo Beba. Then I think in 2009 he was the only candidate that I know what that means to guarantee. The club needed a loan of 57 million euros or no pay, and part of the conditionality was whoever was going to be the president now said, well, enough, you should have the means to guarantee that bank loan. And he was the only person who could guarantee until he ended up being the only candidate. Now, the presidency, this is where Madrid becomes this exceptional club. The presidency, since the days of Bernabeu, no, has been characterized by specialized and professionalized management. So with them, no, it's all about professionalism. So there has been two giants in Real Madrid's administrative history. So we look at Santiago Bernabeu and Florentina Perez. Now share what makes them so unique. Anyhow, their leadership skills, Eddie Madrid, Abidru, Baby, and Abidru. So we look at Santiago, uh, the current um, the current stadium, no, yeah, they no. Well, he was elected the president in 1943, and he remained the president until his death in 78. Albano, his motto, he only had this motto, and that has actually become um, the yardstick at Madrid around in the club. He was all about professionalism, expertise, and visionary. Professionalism, expertise, and visionary. So you value professionalism, you value expertise, and you have to have a visionary eye. So the EBE transforming the club not only now but also in the future. So yes, he came to power after the Civil War years. So he was also tasked with transforming the club and also reconstructing the club. Yeah, Kotoko, yes, yes, we are a reconstruction. Yeah, New Ogum, so yeah, reconstruction, but Omudiani was actually different. So Santiago, when he came, Oba, and the only means of revenue at that time was just gate proceeds. And he also had a bit of innovative ideas, or the club they call a tour or South America and in Europe to raise a bit of money, but that was still not enough to cover their budgets. Not forgetting, say those days, not TV being also there were actually no TV rights in the. So he's quoted to have said, say, Okachre almost say at the General Assembly. And I'll catch you say, if there is no big stadium, oh, if there is no big stadium for Madrid, the club would never be able to achieve greatness. And then he would define greatness as bigger stadium, meaning more revenue. And that would mean you'll be able to raise the money to sign bigger and better players, attract more fans, and creating a cycle of tradition of success. So the idea of tradition of success started with this Santiago. And this is why when it comes to as much as uh, Florentino is doing so much, but he becomes the pioneer of creating what then becomes the Madrid tradition of success. So he would then build the stadium. In 1943, started building the stadium. December 47, the stadium was opened. Na omo old park na omo bobo was no. He was able to transform the capacity from 25,000 to 100,000 in 1947. And the outcome of his decision making, once again, he took the decision when they voted for him in 1943 after a major civil war, which the club had actually stopped playing football because football was actually on hold in Spain. 1941, football resumes. Madrid is then allowed to call itself Real Madrid again. 1943, they vote for this man who then had a vision. His vision is at that time, you hear a bigger stadium. And with bigger stadium means we would be able to, our income would increase. And with that, we would create a tradition of success. And the outcome is what we will see in the 1950s. Now, I'm laying emphasis on this because sometimes, say football, it's say, sometimes you just need one brainy person, obia or adwin, obia or vision, obia or ideas to transform. And sometimes the transformation and your umpo sika now is just all about ideas. So what uh, Santiago did no. Within that short time, we would see the outcome in the 1950s, raising enough money to attract the best players on the planet. So you would get Stefano, you get Puskas, you get Gento, and the outcome now is seeing Madrid win 5 consecutive European Cups between 1956 and 1960. And that was when the tradition of success actually began with Madrid. Now he's also credited, like I'm saying, sometimes all you need is a man with idea. He's also credited with creating the Madrid basketball team. It will be our follow basketball kakra, especially the FIBA, Federation of International Basketball Association. Obehun said one country or high US for Spain. And recently now US is now ranked again as the number one, but for some time now Spain take over. So he's credited or no now take say okay football okay, but let's add a bit of other sporting disciplines to Madrid. That is when you have one of the best only say when it comes to basketball, a lot of people just associate basketball with what goes on in the US. But when it comes to Europe, and I say outside US, one of the major clubs are in him say Omoya idea of basketball Madrid, and that it was his brainchild. So in 1955, the General Assembly decided so Omo stadium no better day, no in that is in recognizing his transformation of the club, which will then become how most professional clubs will be operated in the future. Now we come to the main man, Florentino Perez. When it comes to Perez, a lot of people just think of him. They think of him when it comes to the Galacticos, Okofa, Figo, Zidane, Beckham, Ronaldo. But outside what on the pitch, no year, no free war. And in the word of academia, his managerial transformation is really well studied. So, leading to the 2000 elections, he declared, say, his aim was to make Madrid the top sports firm in Europe, not only top sports club. he and said the top sports firm, making Madrid a business entity. And his promise said he was going to give Madrid an economic stability, and through that stability, he will make sure that Madrid will become debt free and stay profitable and stay as a profitable institution. And once again to the fans, when it comes to elections, you are making promises, just like ABI between your woman or t-shirt and your woman or no kakra. So in this case, no, the campaign was okay. You know what? Yes, I'll give you Figo. I will give you some of these Galacticos, and only your woman so. But to make the club what the club is now, that is really what actually got him to win the thing. But then on the yeta can't too much. So winning, winning election, and our announcers, I want to make Madrid a perfect machine, not only for winning competitions, but also in the organizational sphere. So he just said, remember Madrid is winning the competition, it will be taken for granted when the organization of the club, the management of the club, if we run it as a business model, if that's how running the football as a business entity. So if we implement these ideas, the success will always be taken for granted. So the business model was here. The main aim was to make profit in the sense of financial stability and sustainability. So in this case, in trying to do this this is when he introduced copying Santiago, the role of management in driving success, led by a team of experienced professionals who understood what the football industry meant. But there was an obstacle. Time our mobile to Abanamano. Now Madrid Edeka over $280 million, which he then identified and who say an obstacle to his success. Now Opese build that business model of revenue generating club. No, who said this debt was an obstacle. And then he admitted, say, without enough revenue, won't mean generate success. So his project for the future was actually to formulate a plan that would wipe out the club's debts. And no, he did by restructuring and like he restructured the club, making it more professional based, using three management areas: sporting, marketing, and corporate, like sporting, marketing, and corporate were economic, financial strategy. And no, yes, I'll be used to actually make the club run like a professional club and like any business entity. So when he implemented these strategies, by the term of his first term, which was 2000 to 2004, now two objectives are setting for himself becoming the president, now with Tumaye, which was clearing the historic debt and Madrid, and also creating multiple streams of income uh, from the marketing department. So in his way of doing this, was he said, okay, it was all going to be about branding. He was going to brand the club in a way, say, it has some global prestige. Because one, at that time, the world was changing. This is 2000. This is the internet boom years. Internet, everybody we say. Now it was possible to reach out to people outside your immediate community. So possibly, Europe was there, then there were other emerging markets. So it meant you had to rebrand yourself to put yourself out there. And to do this, or implemented three, he targeted three areas, which was the sporting, the marketing, and the corporate economic. Like I've already touched on these things. And also, yes, promoting the Madrid brand image, And to do this, Obama, like a um, global appeal. So the obetime position Madrid in strategic markets, and that market, now I'll touch on these things, And one other step was developing a new line of businesses, allowing the club to diversify its sources of income. So when you go to Madrid, everything is about business in a point. Say, even when it comes to their website, so called Mexico, the Madrid website then, and your Madrid for Nadia, like I Mudia, but it has been franchised. Yeah, when you go to China, a Madrid, China, all right, but yeah, Bia de Anuaska, in the Atomawa, Una Okorani. Unlike the Ehuya club, yeah, Kotokoya, I will touch on it later. Club na Iniska. But every image about Kotoko, everything about Kotoko is actually amount for hunu any didi home. Let's go to YouTube. Let's share amount for Omo Yusu Kotoko name to actually generate traffic to their website. You can't do this with Madrid. Because everything now Ube Yusu Madrid brand and I will say Dame Fasobre Club. And that is what he did by generating that or diversify the club's sources of income. Now, the last one way of now or using the brand to generate income was the transformation of followers and supporters into effective customers. So they came to see the Madrid supporters, the socios in Spain, the fan-bearing card supporters in Spain and outside, they were all seen as a form of customers. Into what you do, say you have to create a product. Now what creative desire in them, not almost as our product, So in not only creating that customer base, but you also create a desire in them so they can identify with the clubs. So when they speak about Madrid, they say a team, our team. So you will see, say, Madrid people will not just they even more Ghana numpo. Or they more Ghana if you see them on social media. Maybe I me that so also. Hello?
Nego also.
Okay. They will go like Madrid. Look at the pride with will be to Ghana on you be but part of that brand, the brand win awareness, is to create that so people can actually identify with Madrid and use the pronoun yang when they talk about Madrid. So, in so doing, by the end of his first term, implementing this business model where everything was just about how does Madrid get money from this. Decision was about Madrid, By the end of his first term, now what to me because it was already known, said the traditional way of running football, which was practically depending on match day revenue and sana eventually you buy broadcast right our muhu say was no longer sustainable and Madrid cannot function depending on that money now from 2000 and 2000 Perez Ebeje Madrid now omu revenue that year was $137 million so 137 now emu 30% a year from match day revenue, 42% was actually from broadcasting, and not only 28% of that amount was from the commercial aspect. And I'll say, no, we can't actually do this because if we are actually going to insist, going to make a traditional out of Sasisa, I will say the numbers, a jump in that commercial aspect, a cost. So implementing some of the steps now, my highlight by the end of the 4 years now match day revenue now in its 2000 now 23% now 30% now I've fallen to 23% now the revenue like the commercialization revenue now only 28% when he became the president now 45% because that was where he saw, say, that is where the money would come from. So in his three strategies, which was the sporting strategy, was how to the sporting aspect, this Kabebano, was actually to blend players with global significant media output with their nursery players. So what they mean by nursery players, near players are academy. But those people, no, yes, Omunu would have that Madrid image, Madrid tradition, the Spanish um, the Spanish culture, but you need the players with global. With Madrid, there is a significant emphasis on what they call global significant media output, because that is one way you use that media output, to exploit advertising markets and also to enhance their trademark value. So they need a player or what. So when you see them chasing a Mbappe, it's not only because of Nimbo or Nebo, but this is an icon. An icon in the sense that this is a player the French president actually would step in. Last year, say Manenko. So for Madrid, this player has this global media output, significant media output that they need him, and they would have him. And their social strategy, is managing the club's members to maintain a public image policy, creating that social solidarity, being koye, becoming UN ambassadors near the, and then they have the marketing strategy, which is how they exploit their brand, and ɛhɔ transforming almost supporters into customers of their products and services. So they would tell you, say their brand, the brand Madrid, its best assets, and it's actually the best guarantee for the future. So you have to maintain that brand, and then they will tell you, say the objectives all these three strategies of the sporting, the marketing, and the social no, two objectives, which is sporting success and economic success. But no, it's actually a go in circle. You can't have the one without the other. So in exploitation of the brand, the aim of the exploitation of the brand is to raise revenue. Raising revenue, almost collaborating with firms. They use they exploit emerging football markets, China, Japan, South Korea, the Arab world, India. So they go to pre-season tours there. Now, Omasa training centers and academies there. Ninyinani is because the word in 2000, as we knew it, an SSI. SSI money say now if someone could be in the US and actually be working for a company in Japan, so the word of technology, the word of the internet actually opened up new markets way for them to raise money. On the other hand, the Kotoko Bebmu Kakrebi, I'll just get to the Kotoko way, was we have journalists in Ghana actually rather than say or moving who say okay the world of football is being transformed, spectatorship as sano, they would actually rather than take advantage of the technology that any the new way now internet ABA would actually sit on their airwaves and call people so many social media uh, supporters as if say and you still see your current management calling certain people genuine supporters, any social media supporters. But Madrid didn't do that. They actually took advantage of the emerging technology that actually opened up new markets for them. Now, Omo Yusu, that's opportunities, to even sell their image rights in a way. Say when they even bought Beckham, Omuchia Nisika, which I believe was almost 15 million euros, which was a lot of money back then. Omuyusu ne image rights in 2-3 years to pay off that transfer fee. And obviously, Omu license and Omu products, any franchising programs to actually sell their products. Now, Perez will tell you, say, in the football world, football stars are actually a scarce commodity and more strategic assets. So you actually need a highly qualified professional staff. So that is where Madrid, when it comes to their management, it's so professionalized because they know, say, you need this highly qualified professional staff. Now, what to me, and that would usually also come at a very extremely high cost, but you need this highly professional staff to get the best out of your footballers. And to do that, your club has to have a healthy finances. And yes, I want to me maintaining the two being the professionals and the footballers in Ankasano. So the Madrid model sees its club as a brand that must always be exploited to raise revenue, either through sponsorship, partnership, sale of products, or the traditional source of revenue, which is match day tickets and broadcasting money, are so limiting because after all, how many people now be to me was stadium? So even if we keep on talking about Kotoko, the AI can say Nipa Stadium, because Kotoko is so relying on this traditional source of raising money by saying say but even if you have full stadium every day, the money now be free on is still not enough unless say you are still going to say oh cover players I will bet you muka 2,000 cities net 3,000 cities. But if to say the Islam take if the figures are right, then $10,000. $10,000 as we speak is already what 150,000 cities. So imagine say who players are or that caliber salary ɛyɛ combine remember sɛ 3 players kura almost salary ɛyɛ saa 50,000 range 10,000 range hɔ na match day revenue even if the stadium was full every second week you will not be able to afford these players. And nothing that traditional source of raising money a lot of football clubs are actually moving away from this and then actually targeting the Madrid way which is it's all about money. How do we raise money? How do we raise money? And doing so with using professional means. So, yes, Florentino, with all his tactics and with all his business ingenuity, Nibiano, will still fail or resigning in 2006 after failing to win trophy in 3 years. But that time, Jose Sanchez, who was the marketing director of Madrid, Eka said, look, they've created with the ideas of Florentino from just 2000 and 2000 up to the 2006 no resigned just 6 years no. Oma creating a brand before over 20 years. But then Sanchez will go like even if Madrid and win a trophy in 3 years, just like Ferrari. Even if Ferrari goes on without winning a trophy for 20 years, Grana, in the eye of the public, Ferrari would always be regarded as the world's greatest automobile brand. So he would say, Madrid is the Ferrari of football. So everyone know or football, whether even on football or ball, say even Madrid are winning trophy for whatever years Krana, say they are still the Ferrari of football. When they come back, they will come back with that prestige because their prestige and excellence and leadership allows them to generate a solid source of revenues that allows them to finance their success. And they do so by staying innovative and being proactive. So, and innovative and proactive is cemented on the expertise and professionalism. So they have their board of directors, they have their CEO who has been is still the Jose Sanchez, who has actually been a CEO since 2009. They have their director of football, they have their coaching staff, scouting, medical department, and over 380 non-playing and coaching staff, and they're all highly professionals and purely business-minded people. So Perez in Perez is best known for commercializing Madrid, and in so doing, by 2012, Madrid in 2012, Madrid was valued at only 1.9 billion. But by implementing Perez ideas, business model, today Madrid is actually seen as the most valuable club Recently, Omureti Omo asset, and it was seen as $6.6 billion. So from 2012, and in just 12 years, their value has jumped from 1.9 billion to 6.6 billion. And this is a club, unlike uh, um, Manchester, which is the second most valuable club, no, it's not run by some rich fellow and also some rich company, but it's just owned by the fans, and it's even non-profitable because it's just someone with the brains and the ideas using the club's brand. Clubs means, to generate income that allow the club to run the way it is actually run. And they do so by using all these player acquisition, sponsorship, business partnership, appointment of technical department, develop and nurture talents, and keeping this brand. Now, Omuhuni said the biggest asset of the club, it is brand. Creating a global fan base. Now, Omudia selling what they do. Now, the football industry is growing in it's very important to European economy. And so it means even as the something I will be a person or imitate it. And what can be said of Kotoko, which then in trying to getting to the end of my presentation, or trying to connect Kotoko to what we have seen in Madrid. Then Busaye who say if the Madrid model of creating revenue, which is predicated on using strong brand to generate income in order to sustain success on the field, can it be applied in Kotoko? Let me repeat. Madrid brand, it's all about using the club's brand to generate income in order to sustain success, because they know that the success must be sustained on the field. It can only be sustained on the field if the club's brand is being used to generate income debt free. Because the Madrid way now, unlike the Barcelona way, Perez has been able to take Madrid out of a car. So for now, even with their new stadium and everything, they are still making, they are breaking even and even getting some profit aside. Na yɛabusa yɛn ho sɛ saa Madrid model na ɛyɛ condition on the role of management, which are professionals and highly expertise. If some management now who actually take strategic plans and make sound decisions. Once again, the role of management in Madrid is to take strategic plans and make sound decisions. Decisions and Yan Sandaho. Can Kotoko imitate this in terms of the future? And if depending on insufficient gate proceeds to run a club, a crisis, as is actually happening in Europe now, what will then become of Kotoko, whose main planning now is say Yentwini Pambra Stadium na yenyeska. As recently, Yenya Asante Kotoko telling us I was saying Nipa Ba Stadium, Yeshani Nipa Beba, by Nipa Neba. Will that money to actually create that chain of success now Kotoko being here, which will need players like they said, no players omuye scarce commodity. Players are omunimbo, players are omuye idea, but it's going to cost you money. It's not going to cost you 2,000 cedis. It's going to cost you at least average of 5,000, $10,000. Can Kotoko afford this? Now, in trying to conclude, I connect this to Kotoko and ask her, how did we get here? Now I'm connecting the turbulent years of Madrid in the 30s that actually called for ingenuity, that actually called for brains to lead the club now. Trying to connect it to the AC or Kotoko, Aye Kumasi in the 30s. Now I said, did we take the right decision and whether Kotoko has a future? If an answer, any future. Now, how did we get here? What I mean by how did we get here is how did Kotoko find itself in the position it finds itself? The part of me one from him.
Loud and clear.
Okay. No, how did we get here? And to understand how we got here, no, you have to understand a bit of Asante history, which is connected to Kotoko. Now, the turbulent years of Madrid in the 2030s, maybe see Kotoko. Kotoko, the Enocrat, the before. So a bit of history here. Kwakudia, the second, Owu Yeno, and I paid the new Asante Hene. That was 1885. Civil War broke out because there were two Abrempon no ɔmo nyinaa pɛ sɛ ɔmo ɛyɛ Asante Hene. Na ɛyɛ Yaw, Atwere Buana, ɔne Akwasi Agyeman Prempeh. Na Akwasi Agyeman Prempeh was only 15 years, but ne maame ɛna na ɛyɛ Yacha, ɔno na na ɛyɛ Asante Hene back then. And he was supposed to be the Asante Hene. But then Yaw Atwere Buana also wanted to be the Asante Hene. So there was a civil war in Kumasi. Kukufu Mampong, Eko, the side of Atrebona, Dabin, any Kumasi, any other way, Eko, Akosi Ajiman, Prempe. So there was a civil war. The Asante at that time, na Enyema Bibrine was practically falling apart. So Prempe emerged winning the civil war thanks to the diplomatic skills of his mother, Nana Echa. But time I day Prempe Eko Seychelles no or no see the Neko, but she died or no one to mama back to Wama Ghana be. So these were very difficult moments. So late 1800s, no, you had a civil war with the British, war going on, no, not other sent to exile. The Asante Empire is practically over. Inti Prempeh the first now Obeya Asante who was actually also otherwise known as Kwekudia the third, no, yet free Ghana. And he would stay outside Ghana till 1924 or year day, Oba back. In Oba back, no, this is the time ya Kontokwane the Yasantua War Nessie. Yasantua War Nessie, the British actually created a permanent force in Kumasi. So they built a fort, said the Ebeya or mobile monitor the air course. So there was this man called Kwesikuma, who was the driver of Colonel Ross, who was an English military officer. The only Kwesikuma didn't come out at time footballs, England, football, Basso, Nidia Kikaho. And of free, no any driver, Kwesikuma no free yen change. And Colonel Ross, when he went back to England, and Kwesukuma had the idea no take a football club. So in the football club no take first, then Ashanti United Football Club. Now later, no Asasadi, no what they call Kumasi Titanics. And also no Masa Asasadi, no they call Mighty Atoms. Till later, no na teacher Frempong, DSK Frempong, or proposal say, yeah, Sisadino, near Kumasi Asante Kotoko. So at that time, they needed permission from Asante to use the name Kotoko. And Kotoko is quite an interesting because Obusa will be answer Kotoko and say will be funny say, of course, a Abua Kotoko, no. But it's also seen as the symbol of the army unit of Asante Mine, also a symbol of Asante Nation. But in when it comes to literature, one of the earliest year really give a meaning to Kotoko, no? So we would actually understand the significance of the term Kotoko. A book that was actually written in 1875. Some Swiss Euphobi, Swiss bars of one no more paper no so a brihono. Ah, na Omuza Yanes Yesu Aniesi Basel, sorry, which is actually the Presbyterian Church. Asante Fuone Ewe, there was this Asante, Omoko Kontokwa wo Ewe land ho, nti omuba no omuchi sa nkofo no, saa brofu emienu, aba akudi Ramsey ane Kune. So they actually brought them to Asante Mine. So he actually wrote a book when he went back, and the book is quite interesting. It's actually this primary source giving you an insight into Asante mine in the 1800s during the time of Kakeri, Kofi Kakeri, the Asante mine, Asante Hine Kakeri. So when in literature, one of the first yeah we come across the term Kotoko no, ɛyɛ aborɔfo na yɛkye wɔn mu efiri Ebiri Mountains after Asantefoɔ ne Angorafoɔ ne kɔko yɛ na wɔn kye wɔn mu baayɛ no. Yɛde ne baa Kumasi they came to the court of Asante Hine and or describe the term Kotoko. So I'm going to read this. I'll say the command of the Ashanti government are not exclusively in the hands of the king. This is this Abrofo Omaba Kumasi for the first time. This is the 1800s. Now Omako the court, and they are trying to give an idea of what Kotoko means. And I almost say the command of the Ashanti mine and also Ashanti government are not exclusively in the hands of the king, nor does he possess unlimited power, but he shares it with a council which includes, besides his majesty, his mother, the three first chiefs of the kingdom, which are Jabenhine, Bekwaihine, and Mampohine, and a few nobles of Kumasi. This council is called Asante Kotoko, or the Ashanti Porcupine, which means that, like the animal of that name, nobody dare touch them. It is this Kotoko Council which rules the entire kingdom and deals with the people who must obey. So, from this historical source, he is telling us, Kotoko Hina, this was in Asante Kingdom, no, was actually the most closest as Omube Ohine. So it was the Ohine, Onene Maame, and the three first chiefs of the kingdom, Gabenhine, Bekwaihine, and Mampohine. This council was known as the Asante Kotoko. So when we say Asante Kotoko, the historical significance, is supposed to be really something that I know you're doing. Like a year be a stumble, but until Omawi into a teacher, I diverted Kakra to just try to give prominence to the term Kotoko. A trait when it comes to Asante history. So the years of 1930, Asante Hine Yedine Free shows were Osayajima in the second becomes anona a teacher teacher from Pong, Omudi team no coach no, and the command no man here the life patron, which then in August 1935 becomes the foundation of Asante Kotoko. Now, the same year, no, and a year the year, but that happened in January 1935 was the same year Asante Mine was restored. And Nana Osei Ajuman Prempe, though he was made Asante, like he was made the king in 1931, but that time not only Asante Hine, because he was not allowed to make reference to Asante Hine. It was only in 1935, January 1935, and the colonial authorities allowed him to assume Asante Hine. So it means the foundation and as a formation of Asante Kotoko coincided with a very important historical way, the restoration of the Asante Kingdom. Now, Asante Hine Osei Prempe the second, who actually he was the first Asante Hine who used the term Otumfo. Previously, now Asante Hine Otumfo, it was always Asante Hine. So he was the first one who has actually assumed that title. Now, Niwafa, this is where Kotoko problem started here. And we would, and I have actually said this in some space that Kotoko problem starts here. I'm saying among for and Sheda Kotoko founded in 1935. So far, I have for me and Sape and Kotoko Abedi Omunsa. It sounds like a chair is like a long time ago, but when you bring it closer, it's only a him for me and Sape. And the problem with Asante Kotoko, no, his history now here, no, is because Asante Kotoko, the club Kotoko, has never enjoyed any prominence in the policies and also in the politics of Menchia for historical reasons. One, Osei Prempe Ebae no. The first Osei Prempe Ebae no. Owo Seychelles Island no. Ena Osua Akenkan, Osua Brofo. So he was really more about education. You wouldn't say he wasn't educated because traditionally we also had our way of training our people, which will be a form of education. But the idea of formal education, Osua Brofo, Pasa, all kind of books, he did acquire a lot of, what we would call a modern way idea of education. Into no buy, his all ideas was all about education. So he actually did influence Neofa Asia, who took over him when Owuye, which is Prempeh the second. Until he did team neighbor, no. Yes, was some, but that was not his policy. His main policy at that time, no, was restore Kumasi Asante Mine in 1935. No. Now, for all these years, na Asante Mine Eguno, the Asante Kingdom was gone, Asante Confederacy was gone. No. Now, the kingdom was practically gone. Until when he became Asante Hine, no, his policies na ono na ehia ne pa were three things: how to solve chieftaincy issues na develop in the absence of no Asantehene, and how to influence territories na free Asante Maimu to actually rejoin the confederation. That was his adiani hiana no, and also dealing with the British and later Kwame Nkrumah and the CPP government. Into his policy, policy I didn't hear Kese was one. Uh, Another policy apart from say or near for Kasa to join the confederation, was the creation of the Nkabom stool. So no creating Nkaboma Kunya, and his main goal was the Nkaboma Kunya or Hineno to facilitate his goal of trying to win the um, territories na econo to actually get them back. And because of the influence of his uncle, Prempeh the First, and Akwakudia the Third, no, his main, also another important policy he had was education. So he also wanted to bring education to Asante Mine. So one of the things, helping to create Prempeh College, NEK and UST, which were also actually the influence actually also went into this. And then national politics, trying to, he also influenced the creation of the National House of Chiefs. Obeye and the president in 1969, not any president until he died. So Prempeh now, the first Asante Otumfuo Prempeh, the second na the Kotoko bɛhyɛ ne nsa. Yes, the Kotoko ni hyɛ ne nsa, but his goal was Kotoko was actually on the periphery. Na Kotoko nka na dwendwen ho, which then leads to the next Asante na Kotoko ebedi ne nsa, which was Opokuwari the second. And also policies were clearly Kotoko nka ho. The policies know well or we school. This no cool school in London. He worked there a bit. He became a lawyer. So when he came to Ghana, he was a minister of communication under the National Liberation Council. Call an ambassador to Italy. Tini of a woo year Prempeh the second, a woo in 1970, no, any man no buy fee so may Asante. And also by his main policy, Nakotoko Nkaho. His main policy was the creation of the Nkosua stool. So no no the Nkosua Hine Eba Santimaimu, which he, because at that time, because he had actually served in the National Liberation Council during the Liman and the PNDC era, no, Asante Mine, which has always been antithesis to the establishment, now as a development, the central government, so his policy was, okay, how do I bring development to Kumasi? So he created the Nkosua stool, and we had one policy. Another policy was trying to win back the lost territories. So he just created a bunch of paramount stools. So at the time now, no in 1970, there were only 14 paramount kings in Asante Mine. But at his death, now the number had gone to 55. He created 35 in Ashanti region and 20 in Bunohafo. Once again, in bringing development, he also didn't see football and the Asian insano as a mechanism and development aba Kumasi nti ɔno nso na nka ne policy ho. So once again, Kotoko will stay at the periphery of Menchia and Menchia adwendwen ho. Which brings us to the last Otumfo a ɛyɛ Otumfo Osei which ɔno nso baeɛ and only there are a lot of people because now we've come closer to modern history, ɛyɛ ne flagship policy ɛyɛ Otumfo Foundation. So ɔbaeɛ na because now the ne offer also the ne to ne offer Kwekudria, which was Prempeh the first. So Onono education was very important to him. So also by trying to continue the legacy of ne offer was to create the Otumfo Foundation. And the most Otumfo Foundation is supposed to be in two-way uh, two levels. So you have the education fund, we Obaena no started in 1999, and then the Otumfo charity, which was started 10 years later, which then will deal with bringing water, sanitation, and health, Edeba Kumasi, and also partly beyond Kumasi. So, and also, the policy, the Otumfo Foundation. So, when so this is his flagship and the flagship policy. No, so once again, Kotoko remains in the peripheral to the interests of Menchia. That is why for the 25 years he's been in power now, you have actually, on the average, every 2.5 years, a PAMU will be a PAMU board, Kotoko is taking a new direction because the three chiefs, the three ahemfo now, Mabano Omunina, the two, due to historical reasons, were just forced to focus on something because they saw their mandate was in Asante Mine and maintaining, bringing back Asante Mine as it was maybe 200 years ago. And then the current Otumfuo is all about education because he wants to continue the legacy of his uncle, who also sees education as a way to bring development to Kumasi. In all these ways, they've actually failed to see Kotoko, say, a Nimrim, wherever you go, there is actually a connection between development and sports. Sports as a developmental tool when you are dealing with the youth. Youth now also created a future for them. You can actually use sports to do that transformation. So as long as based on this way, the Madrid model, which is all about using professionals, expertise, people with the skill sets, or value expertise to generate fund in order to make success a tradition, which is all about using the brand Madrid, not taking money from, yes, you can take loan, but who board now, or your president, and your personal money, you are not allowed to use your personal money to run the club. It's not allowed. And you can only use your influence to get loan from the bank, but want to mean you seeker. So it's all about using your know-how, your skill set, and the brand Madrid to raise money in their way so success would always become a tradition of the club as against Kotoko, which as it stands, the leadership now Kotoko Omudiano, the interest of the club and main interest. So where do we go from here. Kotoko Daachino, and say, based on what I have presented, using the three kings, na Omaba Kono, any the other sotesuno, any Omu flagship policy, no, it say as long as Kotoko remains peripheral to the interests of Menchiano, there would be no future for Kotoko. Kotoko would never be able to rise up to the where Yepese Ekudruno, Medamase.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. In fact, and Sembosha, more Mike and Sembosha. Yeah, here you go. Here you go. Thank you. Meaning, say, I don't know if people have questions, but I have a question, Nick. Now, in fact, your submission, no, in the course of the submission, I was thinking about something Obama had said in the past, i.e., strong institutions versus strong personalities. In your research, both Asante them say one year research because you already know it. But Madrid no, any Asante no. Do you see stronger institutions or stronger personnel? Now say a combination of both.
Oh, I think make us know there was the success of Madrid no has been actually institutionalized. So you're actually using Madrid in a way, just like it's now actually an institution. And into when you go to the days of Santiago Bernabeu, who said some of the things he laid down, those strategies, those way now, those models now are still the club na that's running. Only say you use modern tools to expand the unknown you know. So in most cases, people always say Perez Santiago raised to the power two. Ninyinano is actually using the institution Madrid. So everything, Oma creating an institution. So of all the 300 plus workers now, these are the plan is people with brains. It's all about business. So if Oko used to now they buy a kotoko ya, now it says a nipa two naira kotoko. Kotoko is not even an institution. We are just relying on Adebi when football abrofuna na ye kano. Even in the 90s, they realized the old ways of doing football and so they had to actually go back to the table and draw draw like a new plan for the future. And as we speak, UEFA is still trying to say, okay, the modern way of doing football, no crano. We have to redo it again. That is why they say Euros over 900 million euros has been set aside to go back into the game because they want to actually recreate football for the future knowing say every year, every decade, no, it was a way there. We update it, now we upgrade the football because 10 years, 20 years, you cannot always be doing the things out here in the 20 years, and that is what they are doing. So they've created that institution, and part of the institution in an American, that socio, no, they actually is in a way say intimate falling apart. You get it? To the point that people are actually waiting almost 20 years to become part of the socio, and they actually make it in a way that it's by blood. And as long as the socio is there, Madrid will always be Madrid the way ACTN. And the people would always make sure say, hey, people are and until almost put these things into place. Memfa yempe kwami chebia. You get it? So Fanny say Perez is he's worth over 2 billion euros. But any personal money and or the Berani club. So it's not even allowed. Say for personal money, every brem, and may show be if you have any show, your show should all be about your brains and being innovative. So that is the institution they've created. My name's my answer or question now.
Yes. Brains and innovation. Means to be for your question from Maneka. Question. Okay, I say comment to us here. Boom, 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 boom. More Mike, and some more question. I'm trying to see if I can read some of the comments, But if you have a question, please go ahead and ask your question. Bet what? My name is Asana Board.